Happy Monday. Hope you're all well. I'm Christine. This is our lunch break. I'm really thrilled to be Kapeluck. He's going to be joining us and talking about working with all of the BalletX dancers and telling us what he's been doing on this time off. I hope you're all great. Thanks for joining in. Lunch break, lunch break. Hi, Zach. As soon as he comes in, we'll start to ask him some questions and see what inspires him to dance. I hope all the mothers out there had a great, happy Mother's Day. I was with my favorite. So here's Zach. Let's bring him on board. Hi. We're waiting and ta-da! Hey, Zachary.
Hello.
Hi. How are you? Ooh.
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Thanks for
Good.
joining us in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Did you have a nice weekend?
Yeah, really nice weekend.
Yeah.
The weather's semi-good here in Philly, so it was nice, which was really nice. It was good to be outside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you called your mom yesterday.
of course. Yeah, I talked to my mom and my grandma, and they were all happy to hear my voice.
Nice. And
I was able to get something in the mail to her that arrived just in time, which was good.
oh,
She appreciated it. Yeah.
so these fun breaks are a chance for our audience to get to know you, and you have just been a part of our journey in a lot of really special ways. I mean, you came from Point Park, and
Yep.
but we'll get into that. So tell those who don't know you, when did you start dancing, and do you remember why?
Yeah, I do. So the story goes, this is what my parents tell me at least, that I was 3 years old, and my family has a history of dancers. My parents were dancers, my grandmother was a dancer, and when I was a baby, my aunt was actually just about to graduate from Point Park. She graduated with the same school I did with a dance degree.
Right.
And she was dancing in a performance of the Nutcracker,
Yeah.
and my parents took me to see her perform when I was 3 years old. And according to them, I was watching her dance up on stage, and I looked to them and said, I want to do that.
Oh.
So they put me in dance classes right then, and I haven't stopped since.
Oh, wow. It just connected. There was no question whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't remember the dance specifically, but they tell me that yeah, I just saw it. I liked what I saw. I always had a good, like a strong connection with my aunt. She was my like babysitter, my number one babysitter. So I think I wanted to be like her,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it just stuck.
Our connection's not super great. I'm trying to figure out. Zach, can you hear me? There you
I
go. I don't
can't.
know. Our connection's not good. Is it on your end too? I'm moving all over the place, trying to get a good connection. You might have to move. I don't know. Hmm.
Is that better?
Maybe, yeah. Sometimes it just takes a little adjustment.
No
Not that I want
problem.
to be in the same room, but I'll go green as long as I can hear you.
Yeah.
Um, so it's unusual for a young man to kind of click in. You hear young girls, oh, when I was 3. I mean, I think
Right.
it's so cool. I mean, you have amazing parents, but I think it's so cool that your parents, you know, um, were open. There's such a stigma for guys with dancing.
Yeah.
Did you feel any of that growing up? I mean, it's.
I was I always tell people this. I feel so fortunate
Mhm.
that that was never something I encountered growing up. I know that a lot of young men today face that stigma, and I wish that I had more personal experience to draw from to help them and relate to it. But I just got really, really lucky with the community that I was involved in because my parents and my aunt and others were so artistically inclined to begin with that the people I was
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by, even growing up in like high school or elementary school, I just found a good group of friends that knew like Zach can't come play kickball after school because he has to go to dance class, and that's just what it
Hmm.
is. And I almost made light of
And no
it a
tease.
lot. No, no.
Hmm.
At the very most, they would give me like funny nicknames that I kind of would just like let roll off me. And who would call me like Tiny Dancer. But that's because they weighed like 200 plus pounds and I was like half their size. But it was always in good taste and just kind of like, messing around. It was never malicious. So I felt really blessed and lucky to have that in my
Hmm.
life. Yeah.
That's great. Do you think part of it is your community that you grew up in? I mean, you have a strong Nick Ukrainian community. You know,
Yeah.
Europeans are much more open and understand the value of
Yeah.
the arts. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
dawning on me. Maybe I mean, you were dancing Ukrainian dances in your community. So
Right.
dancing for men was like considered
It's actually
Brazilian.
considered a very, yeah, like it's a very bravissimo thing to do. There's like a certain machismo
Hmm.
about dancing in the Ukrainian community that sometimes is lost on dancing in America. So yeah, like even as a kid, my first form of dance was Ukrainian dance.
Right.
Um, so I learned from a very young age that like to do certain types of dancing was to be like manly, quote unquote.
Right. Right. Right.
And I do think my community helped kind of foster that attitude towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame in our culture and our society. I mean, even if it wasn't manly, I mean, it's so hard. You
Right.
know, I mean, dancing ballet, lifting women up in the air,
Hmm.
portraying real emotional um, availability is extremely. It's very, I don't know, empowering and masculine and human,
Yeah.
and I think those are, you know, watching you as a audience member, you're able to show so many sides of the human spirit in your performance, which is what drew me to you, initially, finding you in the theater. I mean, does acting inspire you in your dancing, and can you share why?
Yeah, it definitely does. I was, as a kid, I was always really into theater.
Hmm.
I did a lot of musical theater throughout like elementary school and high school. And when I got to college, I focused more on dance, but I still had a lot of friends who were involved with theater. So it's always been a part of my life.
Hmm.
And I started to realize around my college age that there were certain physical things that I wasn't going to have that other people do necessarily, and that it wouldn't matter if I could make up for those things in other ways. So I might never have like crazy arched feet or hyperextended legs and those beautiful crazy ballet lines, but if I can make up for it with my emotional connection to the dance, that it's okay.
Hmm.
So I've always kind of approached dance more from an emotional reaction as opposed to a physical reaction, and I think I'm enjoying that more and more as I mature, exploring that part of dance. Uh, it's really gratifying.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, what do you think comes to a professional? How many years? Tell us about, I'm going to go to this question in a second. Tell us about your college years, and then why did you decide to audition for BalletX? And, you know,
Yeah. When I was in school, so growing up, I was mostly studying classical ballet.
mhm,
I spent the last like 2 years of my high school career studying at Pittsburgh Ballet Theater.
mhm,
And I kind of just like felt like the logical next step for me was to like go into their graduate program and, work my way up at PBT.
Hmm.
But my parents were like, you should get a degree. You should go to college. You should continue your education. So I was like, all right. And I auditioned at Point Park and I got in. And I started at school kind of like hesitant about the whole
Hmm.
experience, but then after about a year of being there, I was like, oh no, this is good for me.
Mm.
Um, I was getting exposed to so much more dance than I had at Pittsburgh Ballet Theater,
Hmm.
and in my senior year of school, as you know, Tobin Delcourt,
Hmm.
who's a dancer at Hubbard Street and who danced with BalletX for a short time, was choreographing on BalletX.
Hmm.
And at the same time, he was setting a piece on us at school.
Hmm.
And I was aware of BalletX, but it wasn't like totally on my radar at that point. And he was like, "Yo, have you heard of BalletX?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, well, I'm working there right now, and I know that Christine needs a guy because I think at the time Colby was injured,
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and you needed a really quick replacement for Niccolo Fonte in the summer."
Right.
So he was like, "I really think you should go out and take class with them." So I booked a bus trip on like a Friday or something. I left really early in the morning, got there, took class with you guys, came back, and the rest was history.
When
Yeah.
did I can't remember because I'm 50 and mother of two kids. Do you remember when the call was? It like a couple days later, or was it?
You actually, at the time, you had just had Wesley.
Oh, no wonder I can't remember.
So Wes was he was a baby.
Mhm.
Because I remember when we had our meeting after class, Tara was watching Wes in the other room while we talked. Um, so yeah, I took class, and I think you actually offered me the job after
Yeah,
class.
I feel like I might have done it.
And
But
you were like, take a week, think about it, but get back to me in the next week and let me know how you feel. And I think I called you like a few days later and was like, let's do this thing.
yeah, awesome, awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you taking class, and it's been so wonderful having you. So that first summer you joined, what did you do with BalletX? What was our program? Do you remember?
I was so lucky. Um, I can't imagine what it would have been like to join at any other time,
Yeah.
because we did Nicola
Oh,
Fonte's Beautiful
right.
Decay
Hmm.
that summer.
Oh, that was a great summer.
And you even warned me. You were like, this summer is going to be amazing. We're working with this incredible choreographer. It's like a once in a lifetime experience.
Hmm.
Like, you won't regret it. And as soon as I started in the studio with him, I was like, this is where I'm meant to be.
Hmm.
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of just set the trajectory for where the rest of, my 7 years here would go. It was just like we started out on such a high level. It was amazing.
Yeah. And what was special about Beautiful Decay, that was our second full length, but really like our first ballet. The first one we did, You Were Not Here, and it was called Proliferation of the Imagination. And it was a collaboration with the Wilma, but it had actors in it. So it was a little different. This was like our first, there was no words. It was two
Right.
act ballet, but we had two guest artists. And can you tell the audience or our friends who are watching what was special about them, and why was that impactful for you, or was it impactful for you?
It totally was. We worked with Brigida Herman and Manfred Fischbach,
Mhm.
which was incredible. I'd never worked with dancers in that age range before. Um,
And they're about
and
how
just,
old at that time?
I think at the
70?
time, Manfred was like early 70s and Brigida was late 70s,
Yeah.
maybe,
Hmm.
like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we did it again with them, and they were even older than that, which was just, crazy. But it was such a cool experience to see them in the studio and the way they interpreted the things that Niccolo asked of them.
Hmm.
Uh, Kind of going back to what we were talking about with acting, just seeing how even though they had physical limitations, their expression made up for all of that. And the way that they could convey an emotion with just a look on their face
Right.
or with just a hand gesture was really informative. Uh, yeah, it was a lovely process.
Oh, yeah. It was quite a surprise, right? It just
Yeah.
was. I mean, we just had no idea what we were going to be doing with them.
Mhm.
Sorry, I keep moving around. I'm trying to find.
That's okay.
How can I just sit still and not hold? Everything hurts when you're 50. And then were you nervous about moving to Philadelphia? And
Yeah, it was a quick move,
yeah.
because I think I auditioned in like I want to say it was late April,
Mm-hmm.
and then I graduated from school like 3 weeks later, and we had to start work on June 1st. So I think I had like a month to like figure out where I was going to move and all of that. So in a sense, it was nerve-wracking, but because of how short the time period was, it was just kind of like, just do it.
Right. Just go.
It all happened very quickly, and once I got here, and the company was so lovely and everybody was so inviting and warm that after like, a week or two, I was like in the groove, and I was like, no, I'm gonna be fine. This is fine.
It's scary. Big transitions are scary. Sometimes you just have to hold your breath and jump in.
Yeah. And I moved like to South Philly, so I was like right in the heart of that South Philly culture. So I feel like I got that exposure to the city really quickly.
Right.
Um,
Right.
And I'm glad that happened because now I feel like Philly's, a second home for me.
So you've been in a couple full length ballets that we've commissioned. You've been in, I think, four of the five that we've commissioned. I would imagine that there's another that was a pretty big highlight in your career so
Yeah.
far. Can you tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about Matthew Neenan's Sunset 0639 Hours?
totally. Yeah, I think when I'm old and in a rocking chair, that'll definitely be something that I tell my grandkids about. Yeah, playing Captain Music in Sunset was definitely the pinnacle thus far, the highlight of my dance career. Just not only in the physical aspect of dancing the part, but the emotional aspect of connecting to that story and that character. I was just so grateful that Matt entrusted that to me.
Mhm.
And I'm also so grateful that we've had the chance to do it so many times since we performed it,
Mhm.
because I feel like I've been able to mature in the role. And for those of you that maybe haven't seen Sunset, it's about this airmail captain from the 30s, I think it was,
Mhm.
that did the first trip from the United States to like the South Pacific carrying airmail, and then he crashed tragically, and his whole crew and him died in the crash. So connecting to a character like that at first was hard because it's really hard for me to relate to someone of that age who was married and had already lived like a whole life. Uh, but Matt was really great in coaching me with it, and just the atmosphere that he created around the piece
Mhm.
took you to this place where it was really easy to imagine what it could have been like.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a beautiful ballet. It's like everything I dream of, like as a director. Like I don't like to muddle. I mean, I know I muddle a little bit, but I love just coming in and being surprised and brought to tears or like laughing.
Yeah,
And this ballet was, really one of the best ballets Matt's ever created. It's absolutely stunning,
yeah,
and we will bring it back at some point. Uh,
definitely.
so yeah, I love watching you play Edwin music and watching the company to perform, such a innovative piece,
Yeah.
which is what we strive for. As a moving on to just your professional life, like what inspires you each day? I mean, I know there's like a lot of peaks and valleys as a professional dancer. Can you give advice to some of the folks watching or just share with us what do you do in a valley? And sometimes it's like clawing, up
Yeah,
Everest, right?
right. No, totally. I think that for me, especially like in a time like right now where we're all dealing with this pandemic, and I'm sure there are a lot of people at home, and especially young artists that feel lost or a little hopeless. For me, what's been really lovely is finding other ways to explore my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes if you get so focused on one aspect of yourself as a dancer, dancers have a tendency to do that. You know, we can get really insular and really focused on the little tiny details of our dance career. I think being able to step back and understand that dance may be a huge part of you, but it doesn't have to define you. And you can find other outlets for your creativity, and those outlets might surprise you and enhance your dancing when you do find a way to return to it. So for me, like drawing, exploring other artistic mediums has been really lovely, and it's actually been making me approach my dance in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really great. And also just especially because social media is so prevalent now and can see so much. Just watching what other people are doing
Mm-hmm.
is so inspiring. Researching and being open to what everyone else has to offer can sometimes help pull you up out of that valley you find yourself in.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know when I was like your age and we've talked about it, I was like feeling so lost. There's something about like your 20s, particularly the latter part of your 20s, that I think we're meant to kind of like struggle in a way to push us into our 30s to maybe really discover what we're meant to be doing, even though when you're dancing, you're definitely meant to be dancing. I don't want to devalue that, but like I started volunteering at the zoo, which I've told you. I started
Hmm.
acting lessons. I started taking photography. There was something I just felt like I couldn't control anything as a dancer. So I needed some outlet that I had a say in that
Right.
I could really ultimately produce the end of it, like, art, like what you're talking about. So I think that's really great advice. And the more well rounded you are as a person, the more you can bring to your dancing.
Totally.
Just share.
Yeah, and it can give you a sense of ownership of yourself again too, because sometimes I know as dancers, you get so used to being, you know, this kind of vessel for someone else
Yeah.
that when you feel like you can take that ownership of your own creativity again, it helps you to get back into the studio and to not take things so personally
Right.
because you know that you are your own creative self, and the person in the front of the room more often than not wants to see that creative individual shine.
Mm.
Nobody wants you to fail, you know. Everybody wants to see you succeed. So yeah, I think it's important for young dancers to explore that.
Yeah, that also is great advice. Like ultimately, yes, everybody does want you to succeed. I think it's interesting understanding as dancers being able to take an objective and subjective view of ourselves.
Hmm.
I think you've done that with your own.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and also complexities of being neutral with a choreographer, but also yet saying I am an artist.
Right.
It's really complicated, and I think
It is.
to help us understand that.
Yeah, like I was saying, as dancers, you are kind of like this blank canvas for choreographers to work with, and it can get really easy to feel lost in that because you feel like, especially because of the nature of what we do, we have to work so quickly.
Mm.
So a choreographer might come in and just start setting work, and you're like, okay, but you don't even know who I am yet, and I don't have time to show you that. And it can be frustrating, and you can feel lost in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you have a really good sense of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
of what you're capable of,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you know what you're good at, and you can make sure to keep that in the forefront of your mind, that people will see that. You know, the people in the front of the room will see that you're confident in who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you're not saying anything, even if you're not being super vocal about it, it reads in your body language,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just trying to remain open. I guess neutral is a good word, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not taking it personally because it's usually not an attack on you. A choreographer, especially, is always really sensitive in that moment because it's a very vulnerable place to be in. So if you feel like they're kind of getting intense with their direction. It's usually just about what's going on in their head. It's usually not anything to do with you. So just knowing that everyone has their own internal dialogue going on, and we're not privy to all those conversations. The only internal dialogue you can really control is your own.
Mm.
So just constantly reaffirming yourself that like you are enough, just keep working hard, be there and be supportive when you need to be, but when you don't need to be, just take a step back, observe. You don't have to always have your hands right in it. You know, it's good to take a step back and be like, you can figure this out right now, and I'll observe, and then I'll contribute when I feel like I'm in a good mental artistic place to do so.
Oh yeah, that's great insight. It's so it can be so challenging because as artists, we're really emotional, right? It's like, how do I
Yeah.
use that? And that dialogue sharing about what you say to yourself is so important because what we
Mhm.
tell ourselves is like what we are, right? If we tell
Yeah.
that we're not valuable, if we tell ourselves that we're not good, if we tell ourselves that we're ugly or whatever happens in a dancer's mind, yeah, it keeps you from being present. And so something
Right.
like a one word like sit back, take a
Hmm.
breath, I'm good, So that's
Yeah.
really so helpful. Um, what do you do like, you know, as professional dancer, you always have to like push and we know our weaknesses and our strengths. How do you work with your weaknesses and how do you work with your strengths? Can you share with us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, as we both know, because we've talked about it, a lot of my weaknesses physically were like things like flexibility or yeah, uh, I guess that's one of my biggest ones is flexibility now that I'm thinking about it. But just especially now that I'm maturing and like you said, I'm getting closer to being into my 30s, realizing that like it's okay to acknowledge uh, your your limitations, but you don't have to let your limitations define you.
Right.
So knowing that like something might be a limitation, but that doesn't need to be discouraging. In fact, that can be something that encourages me to continue working
Mm,
because no one's perfect. No dancer is ever going to be perfect. And if we become content with the things that we're good at and just sit in those things, you're never really going to improve or progress. So looking at limitations as an opportunity to get better can help you progress and grow as an artist, I think.
mhm.
'Cause I know that for me, like growing up, even in my first few years in the company, I looked at some of the people around me that had things that I didn't have, and it could be really difficult to get out of that headspace of where, like, well, I can't do that, so I'm just never going to be able to do that, and I'm just going to like leave it, you know?
Mhm.
But then, I slowly started to shift my perspective and realize that those are actually the most important things for me to hold on to because those are the ways that I'm going to get better if I use those as an inspiration and a motivation to grow.
Mm, mm.
And I'm not there yet by any means. It's a daily struggle, but I'm gonna try my best to not let those things bring me down
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard. You go to bed thinking you're there, and you wake up and you're like, wait, did I not like eat the proper amount of protein? Like, why
Right.
hurt that?
Yeah.
Part blames it on what I've eaten because it's like food can set me. Like if I eat too much sugar, I just get grumpy, and I love. You know what I mean? What do you think is a defining characteristic of BalletX, the company? Like what does it mean to be a BalletX dancer?
I think the biggest thing for me that I've realized over the years is that we as a company have kind of developed this reputation for our accessibility and our engagement with our community.
Mm,
And I think that's such a huge aspect of what our company represents.
mm,
Um, Looking at other companies across the states, I can't think of another group that engages as well as we do with our community. Not just our dance community, but our actual Philadelphia community and our national community.
mm.
And you've been such a big part of, making sure that that's like a huge objective for us. And we're bringing dance to so many people that may never have seen the kind of dance that we do before. And I think that's so important, especially today where the arts are kind of in danger
Mhm.
um, of, there's so much funding that's being cut and so many organizations that are at risk of going under. And I think as much as we can educate the general population about how important this is, the more likely we are to succeed. And so for me, BalletX is like, we're at the front of that fight. And I'm so proud of the company for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like, back to stigmas, right? With male dancers, there's a stigma. With ballet, there's a stigma. And that it would be so wonderful to bring ballet to everybody. So it's like, oh, it's not what I hear so much like, it's not what I thought it was. Right?
right.
If you've
Yeah,
ever been to a ballet, will know. So,
yeah,
so the field of ballet has to be careful that we don't become it cannot continue on a road of elite. it has
right.
it has to be a road of togetherness, because together we're stronger, and it's so much fun bringing our work to different communities, and
It
took us
is, yeah.
time, right, to understand it, for sure. I think in the beginning,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was rocky terrain. It was uncharted territory. But we figured it
yeah,
out, and
you know
yeah.
in children's hospital at times, like some of the most
Oh
memorable moments,
yeah,
little kids
yeah,
down at us in their hospital beds. It's
yeah. I'll never forget that.
extraordinary. Um, so if you were to give advice to anybody on this call, what would you give them, how to be a professional dancer, how to, help them get closer to us, the work?
I think my biggest advice would be, especially for the young dancers, um, as quickly as you can, develop a really strong work ethic.
Mm,
As hard as it can be, sometimes, especially now, we're all sitting at home, but find that discipline because it will carry you throughout the rest of your life. And not just with dance, but in every aspect of your life. When you can find that discipline to work hard and hold yourself accountable to yourself, so important. And then once you've done that, it's kind of that old phrase, discipline can set you free.
mm,
When you've found that kind of discipline, you're so free to explore anything that you want to because you know that you're going to approach it with that work ethic and you're going to make it work.
mm.
So for the young dancers, I would say find your discipline, find your work, find your passion and your desire to do something, and then you can use that to apply to anything that you want to do.
That is great advice. You didn't just
Yeah.
say that because you thought I would love that.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's so true. Because, like,
Yeah,
throw it all on the line in terms of, like, you've done everything, then you eliminate the opportunity to second guess yourself.
yeah,
You can't second guess yourself. You're free. Exactly what you said. It's like, because for dancers, there's so much in our head. Like, if we can
mhm,
just clear the slate of our own, the part of our personality that just wants to stop us, oh, you're not this, you're not that. If we can clear that and say, oh, I worked hard, I did everything I could to
right.
sell this, and then,
Yeah.
whoo, you fly free. Great.
And then even on top of that, like especially for young dancers that might be shy, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out to people. And, like we said before, people want you to succeed.
Hmm.
And it's hard to do it on your own. So I know that was hard for me because I'm a very shy person naturally. But like learning how to reach out to people, make connections, ask for help, it can go a long way. I mean, if I didn't know Tobin, I would not be here.
Right.
If I hadn't cultivated that relationship with him, my life might be very different right now. So not being afraid to ask for that help is so important.
That is great, great, great advice. And those connections are everything. And I've said it on other interviews with other of the other dancers, and we're working our way through all interviewing all the dancers, but that those connections really are your bedrock, your relationships. Each relationship you have no idea how it's going to impact your future. And
Yeah.
try not to burn bridges because it's never really,
Oh,
you know,
totally.
live. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
thank
for
you
sure.
so much. It was so great talking with you.
Thank you, Christine.
Can't wait to see some of the work. You, by the way, can you talk about the awesome video that you created? I love
Yeah.
that. New exploration altogether, right?
Yeah, we were actually that day we were getting ready to film some material for Kylie Kwan because she's going to be putting together something soon. And Andy was doing her makeup in the bathroom, so I put some music on in the background just to, hang out to. And that particular song, Mr. Blue Sky by Electric Light Orchestra came on, and Andy was like, "This song rocks. We should make a video to it." So after we finished Kylie's filming, we just started messing around. And 6 hours later, we were still filming. And yeah, it made us laugh.
Yeah.
And if anything, it made that day go by really quickly, and we had a good time. And I hope that other people can get a chuckle out of it too,
Yeah.
bring a little light into their day.
Oh, it's
Um,
everyone has.
I may be shy, but I'm a goofball at heart. So
Why we love you. We can't
yeah.
put a thumb on what you are. You're so many different things to so many different, all of us. Zach, working with you at BalletX is just, a dream come true. Not only are you a hard worker and a beautiful dancer and actor, but you're compassionate, you're caring, you want to grow as the company grows, and you're sensitive, and you just are a team builder. And so, for that, I'm so grateful to have you in my life and to be able to work with you each day. I miss you and Andy and the whole company so much. Can't wait. We're figuring it out as we do at LAX. Lunch breaks is a part of figuring it out. We're going to to our audience in new and different ways. And so thanks for being a part of our lunch break today.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, Zach. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you later.
You too. Bye, Christine.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Zach. Thank
Bye.